ChatGPT is going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. It is not going to help you be the best version of yourself. So we've built Clara AI inside of Portrayls. She'll even walk you through an inner child healing experience. There is every personal development tool that I've used in the last 14 years to help me be the best version of myself inside the tool.
Welcome, I'm Darren Beck, and on today's episode of Business Ascending, I'm pleased to welcome in Wes Cauveren and also Tricia Keightley. These are a couple of beautiful souls who have navigated the journey of life through a lot of introspection and overcoming a number of challenges on their own, have both awakened to their life purpose and at the same time too found each other as life partners and entered into spiritual entrepreneurship. And that is an opportunity to be able to take that intrinsic blueprint of who we are and find a way to bring it to life through engagement in the marketplace in a way that I feel is very revealing. How do you take so much of the inner work that we can be doing and then pair that up with intentional technology in this day of AI? So look forward to sharing today's episode with you, and thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to Business Ascending. This is a very special episode with some new friends of mine. Both Wes and Tricia have come to join me today. I want to give both of you a chance just to be able to say hello and to introduce yourselves.
Yeah, my name is Tricia Keightley, and thank you, Darren, so much for having us on.
And Wes Cauveren, I could be more grateful for you two creating a lot of space. Thank you.
Thank you, Wes. I appreciate that. We've had a chance to come into connection with one another here more recently. We had an opportunity to get to see each other at the KC Social Venture Meetup, which is an opportunity for professionals who are really aligned with making social impact in the world through engaging the marketplace. As we started talking a little bit more about Business Ascending and how it's really here to help everyone explore how metaphysics and ancient wisdom and heart-centered intelligence can help to elevate both our lives and our livelihoods in the world of business. It quickly became a key interest to Tricia, who took me aside to say, we need to dive into a little bit deeper conversation. As we come here today, what I'd love for the audience to get to know is about the unique and lovely journey that each of you have gone through on your paths. I think that the folks listening in will really thoroughly enjoy how you then found one another in life. And we can get into so much of what you're being able to create as sole professionals in the world in terms of business and bringing that to life, and even what that means in terms of bringing others together into a larger community to keep moving forward. Tricia, would you be open to kicking us off? I'd really love to know about your life path and how you've kind of found yourself initially coming to that awakening and kind of entering into that spiritual journey of inner healing and the rest.
Yeah, so I think all of us, we all have this like trauma growing up. Maybe not huge trauma, but we all have something that happened, or maybe we have multiple somethings that happened that compounded into one feeling. I think a lot of people have that I'm not enough, right? Underlying everything as the foundation. And so a lot of us grow up that way. And then it starts to become really apparent whenever you get older. And it started becoming very apparent to me when I got divorced that, I have stuff I need to work on. I have things that happened in my childhood that are starting to come back up to the surface. And I think until a certain age, you don't even realize, you think, I'm fine, right? Everything's fine. I went through that. It's over. I don't really need to do anything about it. But things started coming to the surface, and a life-changing moment in my world was when I spoke with a life coach, and she said, "Oh, honey, you need to go see a therapist. You need to go do some EMDR. You need to do some of the things to kind of, like, if you're not familiar with EMDR, it basically helps you retrain and almost rewrite a little bit of a new story. It's not that those things didn't happen and you forget, but you don't have the emotional ties to those certain traumatic events anymore." And it was a great thing, and it's amazing. And so I did that. And then I got to a place with therapy that my therapist literally was like, well, you're doing great. You don't really need to come see me anymore. And I'm like, what? You don't want my money? Like, well, what's going on? And so I started, I started thinking about like this inner journey that I needed to go on. And yes, I believe it is amazing to have guidance from other people, life coaches and things like that. And it's that inner world though that we really need to figure out. So I started reading every personal development book I could find. And I actually kind of around the same time had gotten my degree in web development, started my own business. And as a
Nice.
business owner, it's like, it's going to bring you to this glass ceiling. And then you start realizing, oh, it's personal development that's going to get me to the next level. It's personal every time. And so I think that that's where, my journey started. It was about 15 years ago now of, having the business and having the kids and really getting to a place where I'm like, wow, I actually do need to do some healing and some inner work. So that's kind of where my journey of everything we're getting ready to talk about began.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Again, I keep thinking back to these major milestones in life, right? Where you take something that you've built as kind of this foundation in your adult life, in terms of a marriage and a divorce that then follows, and you start doing a lot of that, introspection around what did I bring to it? What did my partner bring to it? What is it that I've got to work on through this process? And beyond that, then just so many other things that have come along this way. The success, the celebration that comes with your therapist going, "You're doing so well on this journey," but this kind of inner feeling that there's even more work, even more development to be done. And I think you're exactly right. That's in fact the inspiration for Business Ascending, is this entrepreneurial path that I've been following for a few years now. It can bring you some high highs. It can bring you some low lows as you try to kind of navigate this out, on your own, and kind of get business flowing in a way that really asks you to bring so much of yourself forward. And you begin realizing, oh, there's these personal patterns in my life that are not only affecting the relationships that I'm having at kind of a romantic level, but even at a professional level in terms of what I'm achieving with my business and my career too. Thank you. Thank you so much for warming us up that way. Wes, would you mind kind of shaping for us, just some of the more pivotal experiences that you had that kind of make you the beautiful soul that you are today?
Absolutely. I'd like to say my journey probably should have started. I think it actually did start well over a decade back. I would say even probably, probably 15 years back, maybe 16, but I wasn't listening. I wasn't aware. I was just living by default. And I would say my journey truly began probably less than 5 years ago, and actually having more of an awakening to there is something within me that's missing. There's something within me that needs work, that needs development, needs better understanding. And, and Tricia had mentioned, the traumas and the things you go through as a child, I have gone through some inner child healing now. And, I recognize what for me, I always thought that, well, I didn't live a traumatic childhood, but now I really understand that I lived more of what I would call trickle trauma, and that was what Tricia kind of alluded to, is just these little traumatic events, that go on in your childhood that puts you in a place of, what, if I just sit on the sidelines, if I just stay here quietly, maybe someone will notice me, but either way, I'll stay under the radar. And my younger brother, who's 11 months younger than me, so just, that close, and my sister, who's 13 months behind him, who are just absolutely stealing the attention. I'll just let them have it because they're stressing my parents out. And, and my parents love me, as a fantastic childhood. I have a great relationship with them now, but based on that childhood, I started living a life of default, and I started stepping into things that just came to me, as opposed to living intentionally and driving things that looked more interesting to me, and something that maybe challenged me too. So things that fell into my lap that were like, oh, this relationship is easy. It just came to me. I'm going to go with it. This job just came to me. I'm going to go with it. And 25-year marriage, 31 years now corporate, and, I'm post-divorce now. I'm, 4 years post-divorce. And it just, I think in those 4 years, you start really looking at yourself more so. And, and really just getting a better understanding of where you're at and where you're headed. And then I met this lovely soul, and, we've kind of, she's educated me in a lot of ways, helped me see holes in my game, helped me see things in my life that I need to face into. And she's also thrown out a number of, different challenges my way and things that I would have never explored. But look at me, I'm here, I'm on a podcast. This is cool.
It's interesting. I'm going to circle back to trickle trauma over time, because I think you and I can identify as men growing up in Western society, certainly American society, that there is a lot that we step into in terms of expectations that we wouldn't necessarily immediately call out as trauma, but indeed, has its carries its weight, carries its baggage that way too. But beyond that, I want to give grace and give some generosity to you too. It's not that you were living life on autopilot. It wasn't as if you were, building a family on autopilot along the way. But I think you're right. There's a level of intentionality that can come with decisions that we make in life that can just elevate it, right? Can take it to a whole nother level. And we may find that oftentimes going with the flow, as you said, is kind of like just those easy opportunities open up, and that we start thinking about some of that behavioral programming that gets set when we were little ones, and how we just kind of manage that in our family dynamics, and then how we take that as adults out into the world. That there are just other ways in which we can make decisions, other pathways that are available to us, and I so love again the fact that the two of you, through the longer journeys that you were both on individually, found one another. How is it that you saw within one another another intentional soul, right, that you were drawn to? Because Wes, I think what I've heard you say even is that Tricia's been able to challenge you positively in many ways, to kind of maybe as a mirror to look back at some things you hadn't uncovered and all the rest. And that I think every relationship is one of growth, right, between the people who come together. But how did you find one another? How have you come to realize what you have today as kind of a blessed alignment?
Yeah. So I think, I always say that I sat in my meditation chair for 3 years waiting for him, right? Because it's I was doing the meditations. I was writing the letters. I was becoming who I truly wanted to be. So I knew how to love and knew how I wanted to be loved. So, I've even taught classes on this, and it's so amazing to truly find yourself, because what happens in a relationship typically is we lose ourselves, and we're so focused on that other person that we don't take the 30 minutes to an hour every single day to focus. And maybe it's meditation, maybe it's reading a book, maybe it's doing art, maybe it's whatever your thing is. If it's just walking, being out in nature, doing those types of things, it's so important to still do those things on your own. And we got lost, even both of us got lost in each other so much that my business started declining. And it's we wake back up, right? You can't be 40 some years old and now you're in this teenage love affair, and you still have life you have to take care of. And so it was, I'll never forget walking in. We met at Cooper's Hawk, and walking in and seeing him for the first time, I'm oh, pleasantly surprised, right? Being by myself for 3 years, it's I'm ready. I felt really ready whenever we met. And so I almost didn't go, actually. I was paddleboarding with my friends that day, and I'd gotten sunburnt, and I was just tired. And, but my friends were what if, Tricia? What if this is the one? So they really, I shouldn't say pressured, but they really talked me into just giving it a chance. And so, you can add on to that.
I'll say, yeah. And I owe them a thanks as well for that, because she was, really the first one I started dating out of my marriage. I had actually joined a program when she speaks about getting help, it's so I joined a program on fire at the time, just looking for a community of men, looking for a little masculine presence in my life, because, I was essentially, when my dad got sick when I was young, thankfully he's still alive, but, he had a brain tumor when I was about 16 years old. And, kind of had to disappear from our lives, and mom took over. So that feminine presence, so it was, very much present in my life. And so I needed a program. I needed something of my own. And when it came to, meeting her, it was, I made the plans. It was like, okay, be very intentional about what we do here, even setting a couple spots that we might go to in case the first one fell through, and go figure, the first one fell through. But it was such a cool experience, because I felt like for the first time that I was now dictating a situation in my life, and coming into this first experience with her, sitting down, having an open dialogue, and just being able to speak and feel like I was heard, and feel like that someone was there absorbing what I was saying. And to such an extent that we couldn't put in a food order. It probably was about half hour, 45 minutes before they could actually get a food order from us, and a number of drinks, and a wine tasting, and a nice Jeep drive, and just
in the rain.
I
the top
mean,
down.
probably 1 a.m.
nice.
or we're both headed home our separate ways, but conversation all night. And that is probably the absolute best thing I have found in this, is somebody that shares the areas where I know I need to be disciplined in my life, but is respectful of herself enough to know that each of us need that within ourselves. And that was a learning lesson for me, was, coming into this, I'm like, well, hell, we both love meditating. We both love reading. We both love going out walks. Why not do all these things together? But it's like, at some point we do lose ourselves and our own discipline in those areas. So I had to have my own lesson in a relationship. And that's what I feel like this is offering me right now, is, every day I get to learn through this relationship and through the triggering of the traumas when they hit. And it's like, okay, what do I have to capture from this? What can I carry forward? How do I see this outside of myself?
So beautiful. I mean, I come to find in our conversations, there's so many different ways I want to go explore, and so many different things I want to talk about. But one quick rabbit trail I'll take us down is I feel like you are expressing, as folks who had the second opportunity in life to come about into finding an intentional relationship that really meets you with where you're at in your own kind of soul's path and growing. This ability to find a partner that you can, where you can hold each other accountable for that growth. I mean, the inner healing, the inner work that we all do, it is not for the faint of heart. And at the same time too, I think we are well served by finding those good mirrors in life, those mirrors in life who can give us that nudge when we need it, and at the same time do it within a safe space and within a loving relationship. I would go so far as to say that we could use that in a business setting as well, just as entrepreneurs can really require a community that can encourage them to be all that they can be with their idea and not going to hold back and really kind of dive in. There's a whole level of accountability in sort of a loving, safe space where we can encourage one another to continue to grow. I think you and I previously talked about deliberately developmental organizations, right? Where we decide maybe we're coming together to create, it's the Wes, Tricia, and Darren business, and we're going to create widget X, right, along the way. But through that, we all kind of know that there's a level of growth we're trying to experience, right, individually, and that as a part of our coming together collaboratively to provide this wonderful product into the world, we're also using that as an opportunity for us to challenge each other to be the best we can be, and using the company almost in some way as an envelope for that, just as a marriage or a partnership can be as well, if kind of fully expressed and lived that way. I think what you've done a beautiful job of, Trisha's, is as a storyteller. What folks listening might want to know is that you have published a few books at this point in time, and I think your most recent one, "Where the Sunflowers Bloom," in some ways kind of speak to that that kind of finding of a partner who can be that. That enriching for you in terms of a much more in-depth, a much more kind of holistic experience. Do you want to talk a little bit about why you found it kind of important to be able to kind of share stories like this, to be able to kind of model for others in a way that's kind of fun and digestible and nurturing through writing and through the books that you bring into the world?
Yeah, so Where the Sunflowers Bloom is based on a true story. And I would say it is the most amazing, like, blend of a romance novel blends with a spiritual awakening. And so it is a lot of my story. It's a lot of our story together. And my goal is to help people go from either being single and looking for their soulmate, right? Or maybe they're in a relationship and need to find themselves again. Because what typically does happen is you get lost. You forget who you are, especially when you have kids and you know there's these little people that need you. And whenever those little people need you, you lose track of yourself and your significant other in the process. And so I think that creating that foundation in yourself and getting truly aligned with who you are is what it is really all about. So the whole book is basically, and the reason I made it a romance novel is because I wanted people to feel the love, right? Like I had one girl tell me that she was crying within reading just the introduction because she was like, wow, I want to have these feelings. And of course, I'm like getting chills when I say that because it's like, it was just really powerful for her to be able to, even just in the introduction, be able to feel that what I was feeling in the moments of sitting in my meditation chair and dreaming about this beautiful man that was going to come into my life. And so the book itself it's going to help so many people find themselves and realize that in finding yourself, you're able to find the love that you want, whether you're in a relationship or not.
Wonderful. Thank you. And again, not the only book that you've brought to bear. Um, I think so many of us are experiencing challenging times, and through those challenges, I think there's tremendous uncovering of who we are. It's kind of peeling back layers. It's encouraging us to see ourselves more deeply, and oftentimes we're tapping into things that we didn't necessarily experience before, and coming into, I think, we could say spiritually, ideas and notions that seem very aligned with who we are, maybe at our higher self level. At the same time, too, more in terms of just our intrinsic blueprint for the life that we're living here today. You have I think, beautifully shared what you'd call divine downloads that you've received on more than one occasion, Tricia. But would you speak to yet another book that you brought forward, Love Your Journey, that you would kind of attribute to a divine download, and maybe even talk about that experience at the time and what came of it?
Yeah. So Love Your Journey the divine download was to create a choose your adventure book. And I'm like, what? Like these divine downloads, it's always a little questionable as to what they mean. And
And for the folks who are listening in, talk about a divine download. What is that? And what did that look like in your life?
yeah. So it is, you just hear guidance and you know that it doesn't sound like your voice, right? It's not like this male is yelling at me or anything. It's just this voice. And I wake up with this message of what I'm supposed to be creating. And I think you do have to, that's all why a lot of times they come at 3 o'clock in the morning, is because your brain is actually in those slower brainwave states. And so then you wake up and you're like, oh, okay, this makes no sense, but let me go for it. And so the idea is these divine downloads. It is our higher self. It is our God self talking to us and expressing through us what we came here for. And so it's so much about like the choose your adventure piece of it. It's not a book that you read front to back. It is a book that you say, I'm feeling depressed today, right? So then you go read the chapter on depression. And I had a couple of guest authors write a couple of chapters that I didn't really ever know anything about, because each chapter has inspiration from someone. Most of them are written by myself, and then there's a few written by other people. And so in that there's inspiration, scripture, and then action items, whether you want to stay in that emotion or you want to get out of it. So some of them feel a little more positive and some of them feel a little bit, more on the negative side, so you would want to get out of those. So it's a choose your own emotion is really what it is. There's 70 chapters and 70 different places in life, even to like empty nesting or being unfaithful, or those types of things are in that book. So, and it has my story in there as well. And it was blood, sweat, and tears writing that out I sat here in my office and I was like just crying and getting it out on paper. And I think that so powerful just to get your story out of your body, right? Like saying it out loud, of course, helps, but writing it down, there is definitely something to that.
Wes, you had an opportunity to bear witness to that whole kind of creative process that Tricia was going through as those were coming into the world as a whole. Any reflections that you have kind of watching it come together and just even the kind of conversations that it sparked between the two of you?
I would say, the first thing I'm thinking as she's talking is like, in what existence can I not fall for this? And it's just, and
Sure, exactly.
just absolutely adore what comes from her. And, I get to see and learn a lot more about the feminine presence and the feminine connection to source and, the masculine presence and being the protector and provider, but just from the external, but looking at oneself and creating that leadership role in the household and doing so in a partnership. And then it's just, bringing the inner and the outer together. I get to learn all of this through this experience, through what she reads. When she's underlining something, half the time she's like, hey, you got to hear this, and it's probably one of the coolest things. And I could never get tired of, hey, you got a sec? When I hear that, and it's like, if whatever she's reading or whatever she's coming up, and some of it scares me to death. I will not like for a second. It's like, some of like, wait, what? And, but it takes a little bit and, I get myself, grounded again. And it's like, yeah, that is really cool stuff, but I really appreciate and love the fact that she is so exploratory and, just as willing to go out and find content to bring back to our household and to bring back to me that I can then explore and find ways to utilize that as I work on myself and as I work on being a better partner every day, and finding a better way to interact, a better way to, to, I guess, bring myself to the household.
Yeah. And I would love to add one more thing. So my first book, talking about Love Your Journey, I had written that and published it in February. And then I met him in August. And so he wasn't here for that experience, but he bought the book before we met. And so I'm like,
oh my gosh.
He's still like, he didn't love me yet. Right. Like,
it
was like, oh, he still wants to go on a date with me. This is great, because I had never thought about like putting my story out there like that. Right. And then thinking about what this man that's trying to court me is going to feel like once he reads my story and all the things. I'm like, oh, he still likes me. So we're in good shape.
Well, absolutely.
Fantastic.
And what's a lot, you learn a lot about yourself in that regard too, is like the experiences you walk into with two people who have past relationships, who all have, both have kids and grandkids, and, and how to integrate all of that stuff, especially when, mine are all grown up pretty much. So, and I'm, I've got, grandchildren and, she's got kids in the home and past relationships to work. It's like, it's all a dynamic that I thought I was prepared for a lot of it. Some of it I wasn't. And it's just figuring that stuff out on the fly. And then when she wrote the second book, it's like, oh my God. I just about fall apart, reading as we read through that together on numerous little road trips, and you just have some really cool experiences that, are just ours. And I think that's what I appreciate most is just getting creative, not only in the business front and the books and all that, but in how we carry our relationship forward and what we allow in. And
let's dive even further into the business front, because I find that you have the analogy that comes to mind for me, Tricia, is Cauveren. I think about sort of the wounded healer, right? I think about this 14-year journey that you've taken to kind of really, really do deep introspection, deep work on yourself, and continue to to grow and to see where those strengths lie. And just as Wes had mentioned, that you are constantly helping to enrich his world by bringing through your experience, your exploration for him. You have more recently, in the last few years, launched a company called Portrayls XR, which I find, Wes, you've done a great job of encapsulating. It's sort of like inner work meets sort of intentional technology, if that makes sense. And at the same time, Tricia, I think what you've described it as is trying to take that 14-year journey that you had and compacting it for others so that they don't have to go through such maybe a long slog. And how can they achieve much of what you've experienced in maybe 14 months? Would you kindly give folks an overview of what that is? And we can go back to the divine download if you'd like, as kind of a starting point for it.
Sure. Yeah. So another divine download, 3:00 in the morning, I wake up and I was like, oh, I'm supposed to create an inner child healing experience in virtual reality. I came up with the name of the company, Portrayls. We've added XR to it in the last year. And once we finally launched, we added that to it because it's an experience, right? There's so many different ways that it'll be used. But what it does in compacting that 14-year journey is bridging the gap in between sessions of life coaching, church, therapy appointments. So life happens in the in-between, right? In the 167 hours that we have in a week, when you think about church maybe being an hour, a therapy appointment being an hour, or a life coaching session being 1 hour, we have so much time for triggers, so much time to figure ourselves out in the interim. And right now, what are the tools, right? The tools that are out there, people are going to ChatGPT and they're asking ChatGPT questions. Well, ChatGPT is going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. It is not going to help you be the best version of yourself. So we've built Clara AI inside of Portrayals she'll even walk you through an inner child healing experience. And so with that, there's meditation, digital journaling. There is every personal development tool that I've used in the last 14 years to help me be the best version of myself inside the tool. Habit trackers. I mean, you name it. It's like an all-in-one personal development app that is really bridging that gap for people and helping people get unstuck and off of those subconscious loops that they get stuck on. And then secondarily to that, we have created a portal in between the individual and the practitioner so that way they can see what's going on all week. And they don't have to spend that first 15 minutes of a session just asking, so what happened over the last week? They actually can see in real time what has happened over the last week. And they are also able to create a digital AI twin version of themselves, like Clara AI is a digital twin of myself based on neuropsychology, inner child healing. I'm currently getting my doctorate in theocentric psychology. So really finding that God-centered version of why we're doing what we're doing in simple terms, right? And so that she's based on all of that. So then you have other people that they are maybe Akashic records is what they studied. And so we've trained it on that, or marriage and family therapy, or even doctors and chiropractors and the like are coming to us because their clients need a plan in the in-between. And so that is our biggest goal, is to help people. Like, there is definitely a place for talk therapy, but one of our whys is to help people get out of the talk therapy that's endless, right? You just don't ever see the end. And so you want to get to this place where you can find some of those answers within with some guidance, right? And so out of talk therapy, and then of course, one of Wes's why, I'll let him talk about that.
Reduction of prescription drug use. I think there is a time and place for prescription drugs. It's been my livelihood now for 30 plus years. But at the same time, I think that it can become ineffective in these sessions, especially as somebody is sitting there medicated, while they're speaking their truth, while they're digging in. To me, it's almost like having a drink before your session at times. Maybe a little bit, not to the same extent, but I think at the same time, prescription drug use is I think it's just overutilized, and it's more profit motivated than ever. And it's really hard to watch.
It's interesting as I think about all the different ways an IA enabled app like this could come together. The reason I think I'm really drawn to Portrayls XR and to Clara as a whole is sort of the framing. I mean, as you find the kind of the dialogue that you can have, some of the phrases that you can listen to in the evening as you get ready to go to bed to kind of help really the subconscious kind of set in and kind of reprogram how we kind of behave through our daily lives. You set it up as almost a conversation with your higher self. I think that's some of the terminology that you use within there. I love that not only that's part of the framing, but in addition to that, that you're going to find the soundscape is amazing. It is such a serene and kind of calm feeling experience being within the app, and your ability to kind of check to see what type of frequency you can pull in that really allows for you in some ways to receive that supplement that you need along the way. Wes, I'm kind of thinking about some of the supplements to prescription drugs. I love how there is within there kind of a natural remedies section that kind of points you to everything from essential oils onto maybe homeopathic or other supplements along the way too that can be a part of that experience. Um, Share with me more so about why it is, Tricia, again, you decided to go that path versus something that tends to be couched in a little more clinical terms. Does that make sense? I mean, it was an intentional choice, and I'm just kind of curious why that came together for you in a way that you felt was what the world needed.
Yeah, I think a lot of us, we are just trained by society, right? And so we just do as we're told, and we don't think or be like let our truth come out with the different tools and things that we do. We go to the doctor, we get a prescription medication that, I mean, I'm sure you've heard a prescription drug commercial where they're like, may cause death, or, you're talking about a depression medicine that may cause suicidal thoughts. It's like, what? Well, why? Right? Like, let's get down to the inner workings and really figure out what's going on with that, the self, the soul, the mind that's actually controlling the body. And so instead of covering it up with a prescription medication, and we're all so attuned to instant gratification that we want an answer right now. So we take a medication that's going to give us the results right now. Instead of figuring out why we have the headache, we go take ibuprofen. So it's like, and though terrible for your liver, right? So it's always been a passion for mine to kind of think outside of the healthcare box. I would go to the doctor if I was seeking something that I knew that I absolutely had to have, right? If I had a sinus infection that I just couldn't get rid of, right? Maybe I'll take antibiotics, but it would be my last resort. I'm going to try all those other remedies first, whether it be, the oils with a diffuser or whatever it is. We're being told that all these natural remedies don't work, and we're not even being told about them. Right. So that's why I love the naturopaths, the integrative medicine. And so that's what Portrayls does, is it brings that world together too. I mean, it is obviously not medical guidance at all. You would definitely, if you go to the doctor, you should check with your doctor or your naturopath before you do any of the guidance that it gives. But it has been trained by the latest and greatest in natural supplements, not prescription drugs. Right. And so that's definitely my why on that side.
Got it. There's another aspect to it that I think most folks would find intriguing and have probably not experienced to date, especially if they've been asking be it ChatGPT or Claude, to help out from a therapy standpoint. But that's more about your ability to visualize being in communion, being in relationship with your younger self. Would you want to talk a bit about that feature associated with it and what that seeks to accomplish?
Yeah, so we are actually able to take a picture of you as a child and then as an adult, and we put those together. And then you, as the child, you literally get to sit next to the adult version of yourself on a park bench. You get to give them a hug, maybe lean in a little bit, right? And then you actually get the experience of being able to walk away and be holding their hand and really truly feel that reparenting. So we have the ability to reparent our younger self, to feel seen, loved, heard, and safe. And that's what so many of us needed as children. And so you have some kids that had like a traumatic growing up. And so then there are certain traumatic times that they needed to feel that way. But then you have other kids that maybe don't feel like they had this super traumatic place that they were in. But there's no way that any parent can make their child feel seen, loved, heard, and safe all the time, right? Especially like out in society, and people say mean things and do mean things. And parents we aren't even equipped to know how to parent our children in that aspect. So I like to think that I am at this place where I know the kind of mom that I wanted to be with my kids. But was I like that and perfect all the time? Absolutely not. And it's just an impossibility to be that way. So I think with Portrayls and being able to really truly visualize what you looked like as a kid, you can feel it. I mean, most of the time, immediately it brings tears to people's eyes when they see their younger self, especially looking a little sad, maybe, right? Like, yeah, I was talking about how they called me sourpuss when I was a kid, and nobody knew what was going on at my house. And so if they would have known that, they might have not called me that, because I didn't feel like I could tell anybody what was happening at my house, because I always thought that I was like the only one. You feel so secluded, and like other people aren't growing up the same way you are. And that's just not the case, right? There's so many people out there that are in homes with alcoholic parents, with abusive, mentally, physically, all of the above. And it's embarrassing to tell other people about it, because you don't want anybody to know what's going on in your home. And so I think that it has been so helpful for me to go back and talk to the little Tricia and be able to write her letters and be able to really truly rewrite that story of my childhood and be able to be more emotionally regulated as an adult. So beyond that, with Portrayals, beyond the inner child healing piece of it, you are able to go in and have this really safe place where ChatGPT right now, you can go in there and you can ask it different therapy things. I mean, ChatGPT has actually been in lawsuits. Like, it literally walked a boy through how to take his own life. And that's what guardrails we've put in place, is the moral code foundation, where it won't do anything of the sort. If you talk about harming yourself or others, we've actually talked with 988 hotline to be able to make sure that we're using their protocol. So we ask a couple questions and then we lead them to the human. And that is another part of Portrayals, that we are not a replacement for therapy, life coaching, a doctor, none of that. We are always trying to lead people back to the human, but it is that 167 hours a week we were talking about. So we can be that support. And all of our AI tools, AI is used in many different ways in the app, whether it's trying to figure out what your beliefs and the thoughts behind your beliefs and then the feelings behind those are. And it is actually only searching its own knowledge base. So it's not going out and searching the web, right? There's so many lies and different things on Wikipedia, and we don't want to be a Wikipedia. We want to be a conscious, spiritual, a place where people can truly heal and find themselves.
You know, what I love again about this sort of science meeting spirituality is how technology is not something that you're offering up in this particular case as a replacement for that kind of face-to-face human experience. It comes with being in a relationship with a therapist who understands and can truly walk you through something that that they can relate to. But it's an augmentation of that relationship. It's that ability to kind of fill in, as you mentioned, the 167 hours in between, where you could experience some high highs and you could experience some low lows there along the way. We talked about the guardrails, Wes, that have been put in place for this particular app, that can make sure that you are getting the help you need urgently in the moment by getting you be it a crisis hotline that you can call if, again, you're thinking about taking an exit from this life along the way. I know that some of the work that you've been doing, Wes, as you've found your own outlet for becoming a soul professional, have come through your support of the UMatter organization. Would you mind taking a moment to share with our listeners what that is and why you were drawn to be someone taking such an active role into it?
Absolutely. So, I've got a great friend that I grew up with, actually grade school up through high school, and another good friend that I actually went to high school with that had unfortunately lost family members to suicide. And with that, they decided to start up a movement here that exists elsewhere as well. The UMatter movement's not purely local to this area. There are other movements in different areas that are very similar, but they started up a UMatter movement here in the area that is here supporting mental health, suicide awareness, and addiction recovery. And I've known him for many years, and he's been very inspirational out on Facebook, dropping posts over the years. And when he lost his brother, December 31st, about 6 years ago, it was like, okay, something's got to change. And with that, they got their nonprofit, set up, and I joined the board. I've been on the board now for now going on a couple of years, and wherever we can just be available and be present in the community. We've got a summer lunch program that is meant for, kids who are on load of free lunches during the school year that may struggle over the summer. So here every Saturday in the summer, families all get together and they prepare meals, and we go out and we deliver them during the week. So we've got four different complexes where most of those families live. And we go and we park a van and we wait for them to come. And they all know we're going to be there, and we're handing out, sack lunches. If we've got beverages on us, we've had bananas donated, different other items that we'll throw in with it. And so it's just a matter of engaging the community. We'll set up a table anywhere we can to get out. We work with the Blue Springs Police Department directly. And with that, Bobby Hines, who started this up and he runs the UMatter movement, he and I got together and we've opened up a spot in Independence, Missouri, where we were born and raised. And it's kind of just a hub for nonprofits. It's a physical hub for nonprofits to come in, drop off items that may be available to the other nonprofits. Other nonprofits come in, pick up those items, and it's just an exchange. And, with that, Bobby and I, we pick up whatever we can, whether it's donations, pallet auctions, storage unit. We buy some of those, if they haven't been paid for, instead of auctioning them off, we've got some arrangements made with a couple of them. And we go out and we resell those in order to pay for the space. And between that and, whatever we can get donated, it's just a matter of connecting people and, just getting out in the community. And I kind of look at UMatter movement as this is the offering the hand out or hand up, and then Portrayls XR, the cool thing is like, all right, it's time to start looking within. So you get that best of both worlds.
I love again where you continue to be engaged in that corporate career.
Yes.
You have found ways to take your financial abundance and provide that as part equity stake in Portrayls XR as that comes and takes further life. The ability to give back both of your time and of your treasure into things like the UMatter movement, and even finding a bit of an economic engine that you can put behind flowing funds there and flowing supplies into things like the UMatter movement and the nonprofits in the area through, as you'd mentioned, the Second Chance Supply Group, which is it also speaks to something that's near and dear to my heart on the circular economy. I've kind of, for folks who know me a little bit more from my my corporate career, kind of coming out of a sustainability path, more so into kind of working in around helping to accelerate the circular economy too. But it's giving a second life to items that can be of value to so many, rather than going off to the landfill and getting away from what we find is a very extractive approach to business and a very discarded, disposable approach to business that doesn't kind of look for a longer life path for goods in this world and for just how we go about being in relationship with one another. Would you take just a moment longer, Wes, to go back to that trickle trauma? We'll go back to the fact that things like the UMatter movement really center in around the intrinsic worth that all of us have. And so often we not only lose that in relationship with others who are close to us, but we lose that in the relationship to the roles that we carry on in life. And I feel like as men, we carry many roles, but we are oftentimes anything but emotionally open. And so for all the heavy burdens we feel like we carry, we do not, as a general statement, seek out a lot of outlets for expressing that frustration, potentially that resentment, that anger that can oftentimes build based on significant trauma as we were growing up, trickle trauma throughout life, the overall roles we're trying to carry. How are you tapping your life journey to kind of help men in particular to kind of reconcile that?
Yeah, I think Tricia mentioned earlier, she talked about conditioning and society. And I think that, men in particular, and I think women as well. So, I mean, handling these, kind of as independent conversations, but when you really focus on boys growing up in this world right now, as there's a conditioning that is, you know, stuff it. And it's you, and I think you get to this place of you're either going to explode later in life or you're going to just stuff it to the extent that you're no matter what, you're not going to live a fulfilling and happy life, because you're sitting with something that you don't understand what it is. You don't understand that it's there. And if you did understand, you don't know what to do with it. You don't know where to go with it. You don't know how to express it. You don't know how to put it out of the world. And I mean, over the last few years, as I've had I believe I've been on my journey for many years, but I don't think I was on my awakening at that point because I wasn't listening. I didn't realize, that there was something more to what was happening in my life, and really as Trisha's writing this book, I get this feeling that there are so many things in my life, so many experiences. I mean, whether it is the growing up and the trickle trauma as a kid, ballooning up to 310 pounds and figuring out a way to cut that weight and live a healthier lifestyle, over the last, nearly 30 now. But, figuring those things out in your life and understanding, what it is that you have to bring to the table, that you have to offer. And I think for the longest time, I didn't realize that there was more to myself. There was more to a potential offering that I could put out there and help other men understand the feelings they have, where they're sourced, and what they can do with them. So that's where I'm headed right now. As I'm actually, I strive to be out on Portrayls XR. I strive to be a client out there that is out there helping to support men with content that I believe is more masculine in nature, while understanding the feminine energy and while understanding how polarity works and how energy works. And because I mean, those are all the things that I have and am learning right now, and really understanding in those moments when those traumas you didn't realize were out in front of you, they're at your doorstep. And now it's being mirrored back at you. And you're like, well, what am I doing with this? And I think a lot of men, they get to this place where they stuff it and they feel like if I put in 8 to however many hours at work and I bring home a paycheck, food on the table, and that's it, and that they don't realize the presence that's necessary. And I think that's what, I grew up not realizing that presence was the real provision. So yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at and working to roll out that message.
Thank you so much. And I think you've done this splendid job on TikTok, getting that through, and we'll make sure that resource is available here with the podcast that listeners can tap into. But I'm going to turn the tables just as I did earlier, Tricia, and ask you, as you've borne witness to Wes's evolution over time, what are some observations you've come about in seeing his growth and kind of watching that path as well?
Yeah, I haven't told him this yet, but he's my greatest experiment of turning 14 years into 14 months, right? It's like, it is such a beautiful thing to be able to see someone know they have a self, right? That there's so much more inside of us. We are so beyond powerful that we don't even know what to do with all of the power that we actually truly have when you remember. And so with that, we forget, right? When we're born. And then over time, you and I and Wes, we talked about like Conversations with God and
Yeah.
beautiful trilogy of books. And we've went beyond that and read quite a few different of Neil Donald Walsh's books, and they are just such an amazing conversation with God. And it is God working through us to be able, and I don't want to even limit it to the word God, right? So there's so many things, source, universe, highest self, all of those things are this beautiful piece of us that I've been able to witness him find that and realize that relationship with his self is more important than any relationship with anyone else. And it might feel a little selfish at times, right? To go on the walk without the people that you love, to go do the things that you need to do for you. Walk away from an argument and say, I need a minute, right? Because that's nurturing your soul. And without that, it's like the airplane mask theory, right? You put yours on first, because without you there, nobody else gets to thrive in your happiness and your knowledge and wisdom. And I think that, like, I mean, honestly, kind of even circling back around to what you initially said, you said 2 words, metaphysics and ancient wisdom. That's 3 words. Sorry. But those 3 words are like, to me, you say that and you say neuroscience and spirituality, mind blown. If there's, I'm just looking for those conscious people, right? And I found one that is open-minded and willing to be on this journey with me, while sometimes I get called woo-woo, and I don't care. It's a compliment.
Well, let me run with that, because I think you've opened the door so beautifully to that part of the conversation, which is finding those other conscious individuals who are both working on themselves, but also trying to bring that through their expression of work, service to the world, to the marketplace as a whole. You have more recently been drawn to the Soul Professional Network. Will you give voice to that and share with what you'd like to be able to create here in the Kansas City area for an extension of that larger initiative?
Yeah, so they are actually a worldwide organization, and they have really blown up into different places of actual in-person meetings. So you had COVID that happened, right? So everything went on Zoom, and I joined it a few years ago, and I would go to the networking events every once in a while. And then now they're opening it up for all of us to be able to open our own chapter in our own cities and have that community resource of more like-minded people to be in community and around each other. Because as much as I think it's so important to find self, it's so important to be surrounded by those other conscious people too, because we can't do everything by ourselves, right? It's just like being a solopreneur business owner. I was like that with my web design and branding agency for 15 years, right? I'd had contractors and different things like that, but you can't do everything on your own. And so whenever you can have these other people that have their beautiful talents, their treasure that they can offer, that is where you really, really start thriving. So it's actually starting the end of this month, our very first session in Kansas City at Unity Village, which is near and dear to my heart as well. Our world headquarters is here of the beautiful Unity teachings. And so to be able to bring those 2 things together is really, really powerful.
Nice. And I'm looking forward to joining you for that initial session here locally. I'm so thankful for the conversation we've had. I'm so thankful to be in community with the 2 of you. As we think about wrapping up our time together, first let's point some people to some different resources, and I'll list them down below as well. But Tricia, when it's getting people out to Portrayls XR or to find the books, how can people find out more about that? Where would you send them?
Yeah, so you can actually go to portraylsxr.com and find more out about Portrayls, and my personal website, tricialee.com. Like he said, it'll be linked below. So that way, I don't have to spell it out for you guys, and you will be able to find pretty much everything out about me and what all we're doing in the world.
Okay. Wes, when it comes to Second Chance Supply or anything else you'd like to point folks to, where would you send them to get more of you in their life, virtually or in person?
Absolutely. So secondchancekc.co is what we've set up to represent Second Chance Supply. And it actually has links to the UMatter movement, but that's umattermovement.org, the letter U, mattermovement.org, as well as Portrayls XR and even WebWorks. I mean, the development arm that's helped to make all of the digital presence, the digital connection between these nonprofits to make everything possible. So, we definitely have a call out there as a massive support to all that's being pulled together. So, yeah.
What advice, I'm going to ask you to both individually. I'm going to focus on the divine download, and then I'm going to come back and ask you, Wes, again about hearing the call but not answering it. So for those who are out there are many experiencing some changes in their life, monumental changes that are having them take a look at things in a different manner. And I'm trying to help provide them some guidance on how to move from where they're at to where they could be. Tricia, someone's waking up at 3 a.m. feeling as if their soul is putting in a call to them to say, sounds nutty, but you need to be doing this. What's your advice to someone who's finding themselves in that position?
I think that meditation is the absolute most important thing that I've ever done for me. It's finding that unity with yourself, with your God self. And when you can slow down your mind enough to really, truly take action, if you have had a divine download, take action, but it needs to be intentional, guided action, right? Not just, I'm going to go out and do all of these things and do. I've found more peace in just being and listening. And I call it my IGS, my internal God system. And so
Nice.
it's like, that's what I try to listen to in those moments, right? At nighttime before I go to bed, meditating, in the afternoon, meditating. And really, I mean, my goal every day is to practice meditation 3 times. And that is in those alpha brainwave states in the morning, at night, and then mid-afternoon, because I'm going to be so much more productive if I can slow my mind and not stay on this hamster wheel. And that's really what truly will shift your identity, is listening to that IGS and being able to really take those intentional steps forward, not just to do things, to actually truly be in your body.
Beautifully put. Wes, someone's out there right now. They maybe they're beginning to experience an awakening. They are maybe kind of hearing some things coming into their life, but like you, they're just not listening. You know, you put it as sort of like a slow roll to kind of get to the point where you've now arrived in life. But if you were to go back to talk to younger Wes, what advice would you give to someone who's kind of in that same sort of experience? Again, I would say when it comes to intuition, that's also, generally speaking, not something that men are really well cued into or tuned into. But what would you offer up?
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, gosh, I have to parent a touch. I mean, but if I'd have known how to meditate, if I'd known how to slow down instead of do, instead just be and be present with, with whom I'm with, whether it is with myself, I think that's probably the biggest thing is actually just letting some thoughts go. I think most men are telling themselves stories all the time in their head. They're putting together narratives all their life as to what's going on and what other people are thinking. And in most cases, people aren't even thinking about them at all. So I think just the general awareness that you're not alone. Other men are out here. I found that out as soon as I joined Men on Fire, the very first thing I learned was, oh my God, I'm not sitting here with all these feelings, these thoughts, these concerns and challenges and pressures that are sitting on my shoulders. I'm not alone with it. And I think it is communicating that message. You're not alone, but you have to start with a conversation. And I think that goes to suicide awareness. That goes to everything. Is we have to convince people to just start with a conversation and find the people you can have those conversations with. And if you can't have those conversations with those people, then they're not your people. If you feel like you have to hide, you feel like you have to craft a different message and how you're communicating with others in order to maintain that relationship, then they're not your people. And I think we get attached to that though too. Attachments are a massive problem in general. So we get ourselves attached to the idea that, well, this is my friend group, this is my wife, these are my kids, and you just get attached to the, I guess, non-genuine person or the non-authentic self that you're not facing into. And until you really break that all down, you're going to sit in that in that same state. And that's where I sat. And and I think getting out of victim status is probably another good way to look at it. Getting out of that place of everybody's out to get me, and even me having to flip my perspective on work. 30 years in healthcare tech, and I mean straight out of high school, and it was I have to, and now it's no, I get to, and you have to just change that mindset as to what it is, what you're doing when you're doing that, and what it produces on the back end. And I think for men, just being present with your family, being present, because that's when you really find out if they're your people. You're going to find out just by being there with them in the moment.
Wes, Tricia, again, what a blessing to know you. What a blessing to be able to spend this time with you here today. And I'm so looking forward to continuing that relationship. For those who are listening in, please take a moment to like if you enjoyed the episode today, to certainly subscribe so you can see more of what's to come. And at the same time, too, feel free to drop in some comments. All three of us will be watching them closely and looking forward to kind of striking up a conversation with you and responding there. Well, again, thank you so much. And until the next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.